Welcome to Free Your Mind Friday. I'm Dr. Napasha Gettings. I am a double board certified adult and child and adolescent psychiatrist. And when I'm not practicing medicine, I really enjoy educating the community about the importance of maintaining mental health and mental wellness. And a lot of times we're lost as to exactly what that means. I started last week introducing a topic known as emotional intelligence. So I want to continue to expand on this topic so that we are all aware as to what emotional intelligence is and how to work independently on increasing our own EQ. So our brain is a receiving station. It receives so much stimuli throughout the day, and I'm sure by the end of the week on a Friday like today, many of us have gone through any number of emotions depending upon what input we received at work or at home, in our relationships, etc. So I want to help everyone have a visual understanding of how our brain processes information and how emotions are generated throughout the day. We receive information from our outside world through our five senses, and that information is processed through our central nervous system, and that information hits what's called our limbic system before it actually hits the part of our brain where we can start to have a rational thinking process. So basically what that means is that we're feeling beings more than we're thinking beings. And I'm sure many of you, when you take a moment to think about that, would agree that we are feeling our way through this life all the time. And if we start to talk a little bit more about feelings and emotions and understand the impact that they have on our body and our overall mental state, it will help us in our journey to maintaining health and wellness. I see a lot of people that struggle with physical ailments that are deeply rooted in emotional unrest. So take, for instance, some of your really classic, easy to see examples. Those of us who struggle with anger as an emotion a lot of times find ourselves dealing with headaches, tension headaches, heart problems, and in the worst case scenario, sometimes strokes and heart attacks. There's a clear correlation between our emotional states and our physical states. So if we talk more about this topic and we understand more about this topic, it'll be really easy for us to start to incorporate healthy lifestyle practices that keep us in an emotionally stable place. So there are 4 basic skills that go into building your EQ or raising your EQ. Last week we talked about the first skill, which is self-awareness, and I can't emphasize the importance of self-awareness enough. Many of us walk through life without taking a moment to reflect on our own thoughts, our own emotional states, our own behavior, even though some of those behaviors are not serving us well and are chronic. And sometimes it takes a life-altering event to make us take a step back and say, wow, this is how I've been functioning all this time. So I'm here to encourage you to take a look at yourself and your own behavior on a regular basis, and don't wait for some life-changing event to make you take a step back and say, what am I really doing here? Self-awareness is the first skill set necessary for raising your EQ. Once we master self-awareness and we take a look at our self-talk, our thoughts throughout the day, our emotional reactions to different people and our surroundings, then we can move forward into the second skill step that's crucial in raising your EQ, which is self-management, also known as self-control. Basically implementing ways to respond to how we're feeling in a more healthy way. So I want to give you an example of very poor self-management that I grew up with. Last week, we talked about domestic violence being a confidence killer. And I shared that I grew up in a home where I witnessed fighting all the time. And so that is a great example of poor self-management. When you're in a home with individuals that are experiencing emotions like anger, jealousy, rage, and they are expressing these emotions in very unhealthy ways that result in abusive environments, that is a classic example of poor self-management, otherwise known as a very low EQ. And so the reason why I want everyone to understand the importance of this is because how we manage ourselves has a ripple effect on those around us, and sometimes that ripple effect can last for generations. I grew up in a home with two parents who themselves were victims of abuse, or I should say survivors of abuse. My father was a survivor of severe emotional and physical abuse. And my mother herself witnessed a lot of domestic violence in her home, alcoholism, and even lost her father to complications of alcoholism. So I'm giving this as an example so that everyone can appreciate that a lot of times what we're seeing in our everyday today walk in life has been passed down to us through generations. And it's not until we are aware of those generational cycles that we can equip ourselves to make changes and teach our children and ourselves different things about living a healthier existence. So self-management is such a crucial part of your health. And that's the piece that I really want everyone to focus on today. How do I manage my own behavior at home, in the work setting, in my parent-child relationship, in intimate relationships? What behaviors do I show other people? What example am I setting about how a person should conduct themselves? And what is the overall effect on my health? Moving beyond self-management, we come into social awareness. Social awareness is really key to raising your EQ. Some of us walk around with blinders on, and we don't even pay attention to the emotional states or behaviors of those people in our own home, let alone those people outside of our home. Being able to relate to individuals, respect other people, and have healthy relationships depends on social awareness. You don't want to be oblivious to the feelings of others. I can remember growing up as a child experiencing a lot of fear and anxiety because I was in a home where there was a lot of turmoil and unpredictable conflict. However, my parents weren't always aware that I was experiencing that emotion. And as a child, I didn't have the words to let them know. As a child and adolescent psychiatrist, I see a lot of parents that are missing some of the very strong emotional cues that their children are expressing. Sometimes they're overlooked. Sometimes they encourage their children to suppress these emotions. A lot of times, what we can express is heavily shaped by gender or social norms. And so I want everyone to understand that being aware and in touch with not only your own emotions, but the emotions of those people around you is key to the fourth skill set in raising your IQ, which is relationship management. Now, a huge part of how you're functioning as an individual is dependent upon the quality of your relationships. And so I want to encourage everyone today to just do a little inventory. Take a look at the relationships in your life and ask yourself, how healthy are they? Ask yourself, what is it that you may or may not be doing to contribute to the relationship being unhealthy? How willing is that other person to explore their contribution to the relationship with being unhealthy? I am really passionate about encouraging all members of society to improve their relationship building. I spent nearly 16 years in a home with one of the most unhealthy relationships on this planet. And let me tell you, it takes a toll on your health. It takes a toll on how you perceive everything around you. It affects how you function not only in the workplace, but also at home. Unhealthy relationships, lack of self-awareness, lack of social awareness can lead to long-standing chronic mood disorders like depression and anxiety disorders. And a lot of times we get stuck in this cycle of feeling like we're not worthy of anything different, or that no one else will accept us with what it is that we need to work on. There is always an opportunity for change. If you can be honest with yourself when you take this inventory and ask yourself, what is my self-talk? What are my negative behaviors? What are my unhealthy habits? And you can sit with it and start to dig into why these behaviors and these emotions are surfacing so commonly and so frequently, you will do yourself a world of good. So many of us run from our feelings every day. And let's be real, in a lot of in a lot of situations, we are pressured to do so. Take for instance just the male versus female, the gender piece of it. There's certain emotions that are considered inappropriate for a male to express, and some emotions that are considered normal for a woman to express, all based off of social conditioning. But what does that do for the overall health of the individual? I want all of us to be literate about brain health, mental wellness, and emotional wellness. I want us all to focus on developing emotional resiliency, whether you seek counseling, you seek consultation, a therapist, a mentor. I want you to understand that your emotions is not something that should be put to the side and addressed later. As a matter of fact, even when you think you're doing that, you're not. Your emotions are driving every decision and thought that you're having. So it makes sense for us to understand more about it and for us to have open conversations about how we're doing emotionally.